And welcome to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee, Valerie Sarwak, Chair, and of course, the Libertarian National Committee, Whitney Bilyeu, serving as Chair. And as always, John Gapso joins us on the big board. I am your host, Pat Ford, and it is my unique privilege to spend time with you Monday and Friday nights discussing what I think are the very best aspects of the Libertarian Party. And of course, what I mean by that are its people. On Friday nights, we celebrate the individual candidacies, the town ballot candidates, folks ranging from, mass transportation directors. By the way, I have it on a authority that my good friend from Colorado, who we'll talk about very soon, is running again. This time he might have his sights set on higher races. On the Affiliate Support Committee, we talk about the true lifeblood of the party, state and local affiliates, for whom without this party would not be able to reach into the deepest, if you will, the deepest reaches of the American political electorate. Much responsibility in this party, in our decentralized structure, is based on the skills, the talent, the work ethic, the resources of the state and local affiliates. Joining me tonight was someone I am proud to call a friend, someone for whom was one of the first folks that came out and supported our efforts in Rhode Island that was not a Rhode Islander, a neighbor and a friend, and of course I'm talking about Dan Reale. He's the chairman of the Connecticut Libertarian Party, or the Libertarian Party of Connecticut, depending on who you ask. Dan, thanks for joining me tonight. How are you? How are things in Hartford?
Well, first of all, I'm in Plainfield, and I think it's the People's Republic of Judea.
Folks, tonight's not going to be like the other nights. Just warning you. So how goes the People's Republic? And Connecticut has a wide range, if you will, of various implementations of Soviet workers' paradise. You have the apparatchiks down in Fairfield County, down in places like Stamford and Greenwich and Darien. And then, of course, you've got the plebes from Hartford and New London. And then you've got the gentlemen bachelor farmers up in the northwest part of the state. But all of them, it is clear that without the intercession of the Libertarian Party of Connecticut, would all have taken control of the means of production. Is that a fair statement?
It's becoming less correct as time goes on, because we raised, it seems, and this is an interesting possibility, that people have been somewhat affected by the COVID shutdowns and the restrictions and the masks in school. And we kind of thought, maybe we could tap into that issue. It might raise, some beer money. So July, that raised $4,000 alone on that one issue, and that's excluding other donations. Mm-hmm. So we have actually been distributing Unmask Our Kids signs throughout the state, and the Republicans are just quietly sitting around letting things be destroyed, and they're going to try to take credit for not being against it next year, and that's not going to work out too well.
Let's go back to the earliest days of the pandemic and talk about your initial reactions, because Connecticut, in a lot of ways, has been on the bleeding edge, if you will, of a response to the pandemic in a number of matters. But let's talk about that. What was it, as in some states, sort of a shock and then awe, where you were shocked the state was actually doing everything that we'd preached about? You were then in awe of their ability to do it, and then you rose up and what was the gestation period, if you will, for the response from the Connecticut Libertarian Party?
I would probably say it was a solid 15 days of the 15-day lockdown. By day, it was easily by day 16, we were all like, okay, something is wrong. Actually, day one was March 16th. Day one, we were due in Hartford Superior Court. And on March 13th or 14th, we had one of our main witnesses, Mike Holman. He is a good friend of mine, my former campaign manager. he was actually driving from Minnesota to come to court for this ballot access case. And the governor just decided, yeah, we're going to lock you guys out of court. You might win. And I had to call poor Mike, who was almost in Chicago, like, sorry, you got to turn around. They're canceling everything. They're canceling my job, my ability to work, my ability to see my kids. They're canceling the court case. Friends and owned businesses, they're canceling that. So that's not essential. They're canceling due process. They're canceling people's right to a speedy trial. Gosh, that guy that King Lamont, he even canceled habeas corpus. So we kind of got together. We developed this thing, and this is our vice chair Jonathan Johnson. He's been leading what's called the Liberty Rally, which is still holding protests like every week over the lockdown. So when the Democrats and Republicans were kind of just hiding behind this and trying to, use COVID to go after their political enemies and get free federal money, we were standing up from day one. So what ended up happening is people started going like, okay, the libertarians are here. We have something we can get involved in. And believe it or not, I mean, the Democrats weren't alone in pushing this. I know in the town I live in, we've got a first selectman who I'm running against this year. He's pretty much used COVID to shut down public meetings, pretty much get whatever pet project he wanted. Actually, he gave himself a raise. And before he gave himself a raise, he gave himself a stipend equal to 3% of his annual pay, which he swore was not a raise. And so this is in Plainfield, my town, where we have a poverty rate of 56%, which COVID did not make that better. But the government is essentially out there locally and in Hartford saying, let them eat shots, let them eat masks. And they're giving themselves a raise when a lot of us have pretty much lost everything. Now, one takeaway is I know our party hasn't been perfect about a lot of things, but we've slowly figured things out. And one thing we found people respond to, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, they go, this shutdown stuff has gone a little too far. And as much as I'm a fan of elections, as I'm sure everybody else watching is a fan of elections, we do have problems we cannot vote our way out of. However, what that means for us libertarians is we have a very real opportunity here, because we don't just have an opportunity to raise money from, say, parents who are upset with the masking things to, different civil rights causes and all that other stuff. We have an opportunity to raise money with, the typical special interests who have even been, what's the best word, slighted by what the COVID lockdowns have done. There's a substantial amount of money that has been, messed with, for lack of a better phrase, if that makes sense. And that money is on the table. And Pat, I know we were talking behind the scenes a little bit in the last few weeks, but we kind of think there's an ability to set up a real dialogue with some of these special interest donors and say, look, the Libertarian Party is serious. We have a common cause. We know we're not going to get a PCR positive free world, but we've got this vaccine that, everybody believes in. And so why are we still doing this? Why are we still shutting down businesses? Why are we threatening more lockdowns? Why are we putting masks on kids? This is after, we've had many people who've missed cancer screenings. We did that in the name of COVID. We've deprived kids of a whole year of education. The great news is it has led to an unprecedented number of homeschoolers in Connecticut, which, by the way, Connecticut is probably the best state, despite all of our other deficiencies, to actually homeschool. And all you have to do is let your school district know, I'm homeschooling my kid. They can't say, we'd like to look at your curriculum. They can't say, we'd like proof you have this certification. The way the law is here is you can, just set up shop. Just let us know you won't be sending Timmy to school. And you're doing it yourself. Because believe it or not, in a libertarian sense, the General Assembly actually passed a law that shockingly says education of your children is primarily the responsibility of parents. Wow. I know that might sound strange, but the General Assembly actually sometimes does intelligent things.
Holy cow. Boy, I wonder where they got that from. So let's go back to the very beginning a little bit. Talk to me about your Liberty rallies, how you organize those, who was invited, who participated, and what type of venues and what type of approach did you take to those?
We reached out to everybody. And Connecticut takes this unusual approach of reaching out to people who are not libertarians, which, believe it or not, actually works. And the great part is when COVID happened, there was no framework to deal with this. I know we ended up suing the governor over what they were doing, like locking us out of state court. So the party already went, all right, we've got to do something. I know I teamed up with some people, like one of which, believe it or not, is I teamed up with 2 Republicans, my libertarian friend who's also an attorney, and myself, who's a litigation paralegal. And the 4 of us took on the governor. We took on the lockdown, like wholesale, the whole thing. And that is still in the courts, and we're still fighting it. So that was the first thing that happened. Liberty Rally was kind of an offshoot of it. So slowly what was going on is we were growing a few Facebook pages, and it ended up being, easily like, 5,000-6,000 people, like at first, that were actually on the pages. We've drawn protests of 1,000 or more. We've had the regular ones will generally draw anywhere between like 50 to 300. So this is a thing where we want to make it very clear to the governor that, A, this is not right, and B, yes, we can bring people to actually be in the real world, not the virtual. And that's the thing. You've got to, you have to focus on the fact that the government's going to do whatever it wants to do. I mean, this is unfortunately the case. And unfortunately, it's not a matter of persuasion or logic. It's a matter of you have to go out, and unlike Democrats and Republicans, we have to earn our votes. We can't just pretend we would like to do something when we get elected. What we're doing and what we have been doing is we're showing people that we're not going to wait for an election. We're going to go out there and actually do things. Like, we'll bring lawsuits. We'll go to Board of Ed meetings. We'll organize those efforts. I can't even begin to tell you how many people kind of just started contacting us. I mean, I know my phone time, I'm a hard guy to get. And that kind of comes with having all sorts of events that I didn't organize, I didn't schedule. I'm just, we've got a growing team, and it's excellent. And our affiliates are growing, and it's because we're doing things that are relevant and responsive to your average voter. So, what do I mean by that? We're actually out there, we're dealing with COVID head on. We're saying there's no such thing as an idea so good it should be mandatory. And the other things, we're actually talking about things the voters care about. Like, here's how healthcare could be made better. Here's how education could be made better. Here's why your taxes are so high. And while there are other issues out there, I mean, the important thing is we're trying to get to where the average voter is. And they see us and they hear us more loudly now than ever because A, we're growing, and B, because when it comes to these COVID restrictions, we're demonstrating how unworkable and how untenable it is. And as a matter of fact, one of our largest rallies last year was like right before the election. I basically, was right there at the Capitol. No one was wearing masks. And I told the governor, go ahead. I will not comply. And if you don't like that, come down here, find me, have me arrested, and hire the lawyer you like the least. And that's the thing, because the fact is we are dealing with one party pretending to be 2, and basically their standard for what they want to do is, can we get away with it? I mean, just recently we saw that with President Biden. He came out, he acknowledged the rent moratorium was unconstitutional. He acknowledged that it lost in the Supreme Court. He didn't acknowledge that Trump started it, which as much as I wanted that, we all know that's true anyway. But he basically said, I'm going to wing it, and I'm going to take a chance. So in Connecticut, just like everywhere else, we have an unprecedented taking of actual property without any due process whatsoever. So this is the critical time, to be out there, to be relevant, and, to take it on. And you can be bold, and you can also be relevant and be bold and show exactly why Democrats and Republicans are not good for not just your business, but your personal health freedom as well.
Absolutely. Now, oh, yeah, a little bit echo there. Okay. So, question then, who was the organizing force behind this? What was the method in which you generated, if you will, publicity? Where were most of the events held? One of the purposes of this show is to describe best practices or successful efforts by different affiliates, and exactly how they can then translate to their own affiliate. So after a little bit of a trial and error, how did things work best for you folks? How did you actually implement this?
Well, first of all, we kind of took a hard look at what's been going on in the Libertarian Party history, and one of the easy fixes that we were able to implement is not only do you have to have a message that's directly relevant to voters that affects them in a deep way. COVID kind of stands out. You also have to have a call to action. Like, it can't just be, we want to keep selling you, or we want to keep educating you, or we want to keep philosophizing you. We're basically saying, look, this shutdown stuff is really bad. Them forcing your kids to wear masks is pretty bad and pretty invasive. Be at this place, protest. Or, kind of like I'm trying to develop, it's like try to get the public records, actually do Freedom of Information Act requests to get these records to pretty much expose what a lot of these school districts are doing. So if you give people things that are really easy to do, and you get people when they want to act, then you can get that and turn it into a conversion. One thing that I can say that a lot of our affiliate chairs do, which is something I also do, you want to find your people that are really good with really specialized skills. We had an IT person that used to be our secretary. He developed this thing called the Machine of Knowledge, which it interfaces with the voter database, allows us to find where our people are. It's something the CRM project, I'm pretty sure, does some functions, but we developed our own in-house model. So we also take advantage. Obviously, I've got a legal skill set. We've got attorneys in the party who have that skill set. You find those people. You accountants, bookkeepers, treasurer, there you go. Get your specialized people to perform those specialized skill sets. But as far as like your volunteers go, get them involved as locally as possible so they don't have nearly as far to go. We actually, we have pretty good affiliates like that have gotten more like central to municipalities. Like, we have a pretty good New Haven one. We've got Meriden doing pretty good. Hartford is getting pretty solid. I know in my town, Plainfield, I'm one of 3 libertarians that are going to be on the ballot. We don't even have to petition, because we've been around enough.
You bring up a critical point, and obviously that's affiliate development. And that's one of the purposes of this show. We are, in fact, sponsored by the Affiliate Support Committee. Valerie Sarwark as the chair. What was your first affiliate within Connecticut? And what technique did you use to spur the love and share, if you will, share the word?
Yeah, so the first one that actually started as a consequence of what we've developed over time was the Wyndham affiliate. And literally, I was of the philosophy of build it and they will come. And then a few people showed up. And then we developed a mailing list, where a few people went door to door, literally just looking for the registered libertarians and talking to them. And you know what? An amazing thing happened, Pat. They realized, oh my God, I'm not alone. And it was an excellent feeling. And that created the community of the Wyndham County affiliate. And from then on there, the rest was history. And so that model was adopted. And that model ended up spreading around the state. And now we actually had to revise our bylaws. It was right before the COVID shutdown. We actually transitioned our model. So our state central committee was more like the Democrats and Republicans, where if we got up to, 72 state central members, it would evolve to the system which involves Connecticut's 36 different state Senate districts. So we actually had to change the composition of the state central committee. One thing we did that helped us grow, we revised our bylaws such that if you start an affiliate and you have 3 meetings, and you keep holding those meetings, you elect your officers, you send us your bylaws, the SEC will not only recognize your affiliate, but you get a seat on the SEC. So if you're doing something that works locally, we recognize that. You get a seat on the SEC, and you can tell us all how you did it. And so that's kind of an incentive for people who don't like the way the state party's going, they can start their own affiliates and they can change it. So once we got past Wyndham, we started moving county by county. We realized we had to kind of do something a little better and put that incentive system in place. So what we're dealing with now is a system where you can have either congressional district or like, local area affiliates. Like we've got the Housatonic Valley, Libertarian Party, for example. I mean, it's not quite a congressional district, but it's certainly not a municipality. So the model is kind of designed to grow, like one part, like all the components come together. And the incentive model has really driven membership. It's really driven involvement.
So now let's tie the two in then, because here you have a statewide initiative. And this is what's critical because, how do you get that critical mass going where a statewide initiative takes place and you then attract crowds, you get buy-in from the affiliate. So you decided to have these series of events, speeches, as you mentioned, your vice chair was aggressively involved in promoting them. What happened then with the affiliates that existed at the time, and how did you guys use that to grow more affiliates? How did you get them to get involved in marketing it? Did you spread the events around the state? Were they primarily Hartford-based? Give us a little insight onto that.
I mean, social media was kind of the basic backbone of letting everybody know we're there. But the big thing that works the best if you really want to start the fire burning is just go door to door in a place where there is no affiliate and just find the other libertarians, because nothing gets your average libertarian more excited to figure out that, no, they're not alone. And that's really powerful. And that really leads to regular meetings. And those regular meetings lead to more people going, there's more people here. And they get more involved. And so once you start going from that, I got to admit, and I think everybody can agree with this, COVID-19 didn't exactly come with a manual nor the government response to it, or at least so they say. Right. But as far as we go, we definitely didn't have a manual. So what we had to do was very quickly try to organize something that nobody was organizing in the Republican or Democratic parties because they were just afraid, or they just wanted the COVID money, or it's both. So we were in the unusual position of having a unique product, namely being left alone, which had appreciated quite a bit as an asset. So once people found out that, the Liberty Rally was at first leading it, we didn't necessarily front load the LP brand, but everybody knew it was a Libertarian Party. We did reach a point, especially last year, where we had to say, look, it's all nice if people want to bring their Trump flags or they want to bring their Biden stuff or whatever, but, if you're here, we're under a common purpose. We're under a common banner. And so eventually the Liberty Rally matured such that people who had initially gotten involved in other parties, they started going like, wait a minute, Trump really did start that eviction moratorium. And yes, he did start that whole masks are patriotic thing. And oh, yes, he did say it's just $26 trillion. We'll pay it back. Give him a few more bucks. And of course, no, he was not the president on January 6th either. So as a lot of people who just recently got involved, they were actually running into libertarians who've been around, and they could see the forest and the trees, as it were. And so we were there to kind of I don't think handhold is the right term, but we didn't throw them off the deep end of the North Atlantic to teach them how to swim, because right. The way persuasion works is somebody will think that they've convinced themselves of it, and it's true, and that's why they think that. So you don't necessarily attract people by there's a good guy named Michael Cloud. He wrote a book on what he called flashing. He was a very, very long-time member of the party. But flashing is a term. You don't get people by saying, like, our issue is LGBTQ, or our issue is crypto, or our issue is, like, immigration. You don't, not that those aren't important. You don't lead with that. You lead with what's relevant to the voter right now. So, for example, you can feel very passionately about wars overseas. You can feel very passionately about immigration. You can feel very passionately about the drug war. But if you're talking to someone whose kid hasn't seen his friends in a year, or you're talking to someone who's literally lost everything because the governor decided he wasn't essential, or you're talking to like someone who's like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job unless I take this vaccine that I'm not quite confident in yet. If you're talking to all those people, or you're talking to someone who lost their business because a COVID enforcer came around, or you're talking to people that are in college right now, and even though older people have gotten to live their lives, they're telling them not to live their life indefinitely. You're talking to all those people, and there's that one issue in front of all of them, and it is that elephant in the room. And the Libertarian Party of Connecticut has embraced that, because we, like every other affiliate, we oppose the omnipotent cult of the state. We don't think there's an idea so good it should be mandatory. And quite frankly, I think the marketing campaign for the vaccine kind of shows that maybe it's not us that has a messaging problem. Maybe it's, if you've got, trillions of dollars and you've got all the force mechanisms in place, and you still can't get people to take a product that you otherwise would have been had you marketed it more smart, like, it shouldn't be mandatory. Maybe there's something to be learned from that.
So what you've done effectively is take an approach that candidates have championed for years. Well, every salesman in America, when you go to sales school, the first thing they talk about is needs assessment, and then following the needs assessment with an evaluation of how your product can meet those specific needs. So you were in the car business and someone said, I got a need for speed. You're not going to show them a minivan.
Nope.
On the other hand, if they've got 5 kids, despite the husband's protesting too much, you're going to show them the minivan, and you're going to go through each safety step, probably to the more responsible spouse than guys like you and me, right? And yep. you're gonna pitch that. That's a fundamental in both sales and candidates. How many candidates have gone on those overly advertised listening tours? But quite frankly, they work. But what you've done is taken the revolutionary step, if you will, and I'm saying it with a smile because it's one born of admiration, and you've taken the part of the Libertarian Party platform, if you will, that applies to their overriding concern, which for the last year or so, and believe me, as someone who lives directly adjacent to the said, Soviet workers' paradise of Connecticut, I get the resentment towards, as you folks have appropriately called him, King Lamont. So that's a lesson that's universal, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's one that took a long time to institutionally stick. And for years, and this is something that I cannot stress this, I've had a total of 13 years in the party, the majority of it being chair. And if there's one thing I've always learned is that the Libertarian Party will go through ups and downs. They'll get a whole bunch of people that come in that want to build a party. They don't want to focus on wedge issues. They actually want to get out there and use their skills as salesmen, use their skills as legal professionals, use their skills as finance people, as money raisers, use those skills at recruiters or coaches or whatever. And they should feel like, they should have the space to breathe professionally. And the same is true for social media guys. But the trouble we've run into intermittently is we have people that want to flash. And what that does is, sure, they're probably right on the vast majority of the issue, and they're bold and they're impassioned about it. But the content to your average voter is not relevant. And what ends up happening is you drive away those people that are actually trying to use their skills and build a serious machine. Because what we have found, it took us a while to get this right. So bear in mind, I joined the party during the Bob Barr days, where literally in the entire state, we had only 3 or 4 people actually doing anything. Now, I know people will say some parties have been small, but we were small. We were very small back then. And that was one of those examples during that time period of what had happened. So what we've kind of done is we've gotten people, together. We've said, all right, what's our mission? Everything we do, does it result in likes, shares, tweets, or does it result in people actually donating dollars? Does it result in an echo chamber, or does it result in people actively voting for us? Does it make us feel good and bold or flashy? or does it actually register people as voting libertarians? Because that's the thing. And I think when we get our focus on that rather than this faction or that faction, or like this caucus or that caucus. I mean, Connecticut is very diverse. If you want, you probably aren't going to find a wider range of like diverging caucus interests. But the thing is, we have a culture where we're all on the same team. We love each other. We're just like we're family. We're basically a family, and we kind of appreciate this from a sense that we're a company. We have a product. We want to move our product. And what we've done over the years is we've come to realize that, look, we are the free market party. However, the free market party has not necessarily paid attention to what the free market has said. So instead of taking that approach, as you aptly described, the salesman approach, in the past, too many of us had taken that approach of like, we'd really like you to buy our answer on this issue. So instead of asking the prospect what the prospect wants, we have just assumed the prospect should be made to want something different than what they want.
Absolutely. Every week we do a candidate show, and I often joke about Austrian economics, which is a deadly serious subject, and I describe my affinity to learning more about it. But I also note that the average taxpayer in most towns in America neither knows nor cares a single whit, as they say, about Austrian economics. They are, however, pre-COVID, worrying about their kids graduating from school and getting a better job. They are now, during COVID, worried about their kids graduating from school before they even get to that point. And all the madness that's going on. There's so many sentient issues, I call them lunch pail issues, which hit the average American in the gut that have nothing to do with those issues cherished by those of us in the political bubble, as I call it. Folks, hardcore party members in Connecticut, I had the opportunity to go to your convention a year or so ago, and it was a wonderful, spirited event. I had the time of my life there. One of the last things I got to do before the COVID blackout, if you will, and that's not saying it, just had a great time all day. People were engaging in every part of the room, with every piped-in speaker, with the candidates who made it there that weekend. It was just amazing. So you've got a group of people who are highly engaged. But again, how do we as libertarians, pivot the battleship, right? Turn the battleship on a dime. How do we move it so that we're actively engaging with folks from the community? I mean, the important lesson from this is that we need more than just the members of the Libertarian Party of Connecticut to vote for Connecticut candidates, don't we? If we're going to win.
Yeah, I think, and I hope our little project comes together to actually go talk to real political fundraisers, with real actual special interest money. And I don't say special interest in a bad way, but that's, for lack of a better term, you've got a ton of industries, like even the hospitality industry. I couldn't think of a better prospect, to go to say, hey, the Libertarian Party, we're not going to tell you how to set up your restaurant such that you have to make your customers miserable. I mean, and by the way, I know there's a lot of debate and confusion on like businesses setting their own rules, but here's the reality. Businesses basically had a proverbial gun pointed at them, and the governor said, you better do this or else. And they're always looking at everybody like, who's going to actually, rat on me this week for COVID violations. So it's not necessarily a free choice when businesses do these things. They do these things because they're being threatened and coerced. So I think, our next move, and I hope as a national party as well, is to start talking to serious political fundraisers. And I hope that starts to lead to the formation of, super PACs, because the fact is, we do it the hard way. We raise money the hard way. We go, Grandma Lunch Bucket is going to give us $50 and she's going to become a member, and that's going to fund us. However, what we have to do is go where the real money is, where people have been aggrieved by not being left alone. And those people, I mean, if you want a $2 billion ballot access budget, that's how we do it. And that is one of these things I think we can make a compelling case. I think it's time we sit down with them and say, look, as much as we like crypto and all these other issues, which are important to us, We are serious. We have a product that you need this product. And as imperfect as we are, we would have never done any of this, and any candidate would have been stopped before they could have even gotten close to the nomination if they were going to do any of this. So that's one thing I think we as party leaders have to do. As far as like regular members, it is always important to just go to local meetings. Let them know, speak if you have public comment, but keep it relevant. That's obviously not the time you go down to town hall to talk about abortion or immigration or something like that. Talk about local stuff. And you can make a surprising difference. Like, we always want at least one libertarian in town who's just going to speak up even when the whole room is against it. Like right. I did at a local budget meeting. I said, you're giving yourselves a raise now when so many people have lost everything. I mean, being that one voice is powerful, and it leads to other voices.
Absolutely. What excites, I'm convinced, and I'd love your reaction to the statement. I'm convinced what excites certain individuals, many of them, quite frankly, are the early adopters, right? Certain individuals to connect with the Libertarian Party, and most importantly, stay with the Libertarian Party, are sticking to our statement of principles and sticking to our platform and being excitedly and unabashedly libertarian. The stay it safe, go along with the crowd notion has not really worked in sort of staying power. It's gotten us some extra votes, but I've got to imagine in towns across Connecticut, and understand that it was only 100 and 200 years ago where people in Connecticut were on the forefront of the American Revolution, that you're going to go and just be a tempered existence and be careful. And who was it? Was it Dana Carvey? It wouldn't be prudent. Yeah. Obviously, there's going to be people who are going to jump on with us early on, but those are the people for which a foundation of a political movement is made, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing about that is you have to bear in mind that a lot of people, there's a lot that a lot of people don't know, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to know those things because it kind of gets in the way of their biases. But relevant to that, the thing is, you have to get people to realize that there are a lot of things that we all care about. We all want our kids to be taken care of. We all want them to grow up to be well-adjusted, functional adults who could survive on their own. We all want good food. We all want a roof over our head. We all love our parents. Just basic things that connect us. And so what we have to do is let everybody know we're not, these cave dwellers who just coldly do not care. We just realize, and we care, that if you have the government doing a lot of these things, just because the government didn't, started doing these things, it's not like nobody was doing it before. I mean, like, you had things like lodge practice medicine, which HMOs didn't like that. Health insurance companies didn't like that. So, of course, they got the government to crack down on that, and healthcare was more expensive, and that's the end of the story. And it's not like we always had public schools. I mean, we used to have, especially in New England, we had schools where, you had multiple age, groups. You had the older students teaching the younger students, and the school day was 3 hours. You weren't just grinding these poor kids with, a full work day of wait to be educated by somebody else when the teacher gets around to you, and we have to teach at the speed of the slowest student in the room. I mean, there were a lot of things that we took care of on our own, and we did it way more efficiently, and we did it with far less expense and far less involvement. I mean, fundamentally, people, and this is important to bear in mind, especially during COVID, especially when these governors have been saying, you're essential, you're not essential. The thing that I used to point out is there's a relationship between rights and responsibilities and ownership, okay? Ownership, that's you. It's self-ownership. So you have responsibilities, which, don't hurt anybody else and provide for yourself. But that's why you have rights. Rights exist to carry out responsibilities. So a lot of issues or people, I guess, get stuck on is you could take something like abortion and say, fine, you have reproductive rights, but you also have a responsibility. It can't just be one without the other. And the thing we can point out here, especially not only with the COVID response, but what Demopublicans have been doing the whole time, is we can say, look, they're trying to separate you from your rights and your responsibilities. And if you lack one, you've got no ownership. So when the governor said you can't work, or like the governor said, you can't raise your kids under these circumstances, he basically said the government owns you. That's what he said. And that needs to be made clear. And I think we're doing a lot better of a job making that clear. But if we continue to focus on that, we can kind of get voters to put it together so as not to be trapped in this perpetual doublespeak, where normally you got a politician that says, you ask them what a right is, he goes, oh, healthcare is a right. Oh, food's a right. Oh, education's a right. It's like, so you're using a word to define itself? Seems a bit problematic, don't you think?
And we all know that nothing is a right if it depends on the labor and the forced labor of others, which is an area, obviously, that they're not interested in having a conversation about. Folks, if you're just joining us, Dan Reale is the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Connecticut. I've known Dan since I first joined the party. I'm proud to call him a friend and a coworker, if you will, now, as I'll be working with a number of the groups across New England. A couple other things I wanted to focus on, but I appreciate you going through a full development of how you approached the COVID era, because it's there's some critical lessons to be learned from what Connecticut achieved during this time. Let's flash through in the 15 minutes or so we have left some of the other issues. We talked about affiliate development, how you guys go about that, and it's a great model, and it appears to be working very, very well. You've got it seems like a really healthy balance between local autonomy and at the same time inclusion within this board, if you will, the executive committee that overall steers the ship, with you acting, if you will, as a someone who fosters the move. Let's talk about a couple of other issues, though. How do you approach the media in your state? It's a fascinating market because you're right. Connecticut, we often think of Connecticut as Hartford or Greenwich, and quite frankly, there's the word dichotomy would be underused there.
There's my part of Connecticut, which is the 2nd congressional district, which I've run for. I'm probably going to do it again. That's kind of like the black sheep of the state. You've got people in Hartford and Greenwich. They want to tell us if we should be able to buy a gun or even own one, or what we should do with zoning out here. And it's kind of like that may work for Hartford or New Haven or Greenwich, but it doesn't work out here where we have farms and chickens and various wild animals attacking them and whatnot. So it's an interesting mix. But as far as our media market goes, it is unfortunately consolidated and dominated. We used to have a lot more major media outlets. I know. I've always told people, and I've always done this, try to develop ongoing working relationships with local papers. I'm happy to say I've developed a relationship. I was telling somebody about this the other night, but I've actually gotten to know a good 10 years of newspaper opinion and editors and publishers. But I will tell you this, and this felt really good to do in 2018 after we got some lawsuit money from Meriden, is Channel 3 was repeatedly they tried to beat me up pretty bad when they interviewed me a few times, and it's been hostile. It's very much been promoting the whole safetyism narrative, but we reached a point in 2018 where we wanted quotes to run television ads. We've actually run television ads on mainstream television stations.
Wow!
We're
on the telly.
We're actually on the television with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It was just great. And so we got to tell Channel 3, well, since you treated us so poorly by ignoring our Senate candidate, how about we just take our money to Channel 8? And we did. So the free
Send them a
market
copy of the canceled
said,
check.
your customer service is terrible. We want another product. And we got more airtime. We got the airtime half as expensive.
That I got to tell you, dude, that must have felt good.
It felt great because I know toward the beginning of COVID, I remember they had me on the Chaz and AJ show, which had a live audience of 3 million people because we were leading that fight. And so the host starts going off. He starts trying to yell at me like I hate grandma. And I said, all right, if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to hang up this damn phone and this interview is over. And there was pause. There was 3-4 seconds of dead air. And then I said, would you like to hear our side of the story? They said yes. And I'm like, that wasn't difficult, was it? And so we corrected our relationship. And then I just quietly told them, this is gonna close hospitals. This is gonna, we're gonna miss a whole bunch of cancer screenings. Kids are gonna miss a bunch of school. You're gonna have a whole bunch of deaths of despair. You're gonna disrupt supply chains necessary to not only dentistry, but you'd bring dentistry back to the 90s. When I say that, I mean the 1890s. Because machine tools and all that magical stuff, and I'm saying this in April 2020, and then eventually it's kind of like, oh, and I keep asking him, do you want me back on? Do you want me to, compare notes to where we were? Because I know Connecticut, we had 200 some odd deaths per 100,000, but Malawi, that had no lockdown, only has 8 per 100,000, and they're not even mandating anything, and they have no shots. So how'd we do, Connecticut? We got beaten by a sub-Saharan third world African nation. We feel good about ourselves, don't we?
Mm-hmm. This was proof of concept for the libertarian movement in a way that's never happened before, and particularly in a consolidated period of time. Talk to me about events. What have you guys got coming up? When do you hold your convention? And if you could just do a quick segue right into ballot access.
Well, our convention, we're setting it up for January of next year. I had actually told my board, so I think I can say this here. I plan on transitioning out of the role of chair, but one thing I'm doing, which, and I hope more people do this, I'm actually going to be writing a chair's manual, and we have a lot of manuals. I didn't even get to go into that. We actually have manuals for, we have an affiliate building manual. It's got all the forms, it's got everything, so it's not like you're flying blind because the last guy that was doing it left and, he didn't give you a referential index. So as far as events, the Liberty Rally is going as long as COVID's going. And we made it clear to the governor, we will win, you will lose. And you can't lock everything down and rule by one-man rule forever. So going into next year, I'm hoping our additional fundraising concepts are actually going to translate into serious political action committee money. So one thing I would say, if anybody in the party is watching this, the time to start doing the paperwork to set up political action committees is now, because Democrats and Republicans rely on the fact that our freedom of speech is only limited to $5,000 in the general and $5,000 in the primary. So what I would strongly suggest we do is start to set up, different political action committees, get them to exist on paper, open the bank accounts, and then slowly we have to start connecting this with the special interest industry money. And I got to say, the hospitality industry, cruise ship industry perhaps, I don't know, maybe you can think of an aggrieved specific industry subject to sector rules of your own. Maybe, I don't know. But let's get that set up. And I know the other thing that we are looking, to do is we're still looking to continue to start new affiliates, because at a certain point, all of these affiliates are going to become town committees. That's the plan. Connecticut has 169 town committees. So if we can get, just like the Democrats and Republicans have, even 10, 10 people, believe it or not, that's a Democratic or Republican town committee in many towns in Connecticut. The bigger towns, obviously more. But this is the thing. The reason that they succeed the way they do is, and we take this lesson from them because it works, they have a local group on the ground that knows the local people, that knows everybody in town. And so what they can do is, if you need a petition drive done, you don't need a whole lot of people, you don't need a whole mass organized thing, you can just go out and collect them and do it. And I would like to be able to do that if we could get together with, go after that PAC money, so we can have a $2 billion ballot access fund. I think if we can kill it for $1 million or $2 million, we could probably put someone on the moon for $2 billion, based on how good we are at that. So this is a question of not saying what can't we do. This is a question of asking what can we do. So if you're out there and you're a chair, or you're an affiliate chair, or you're a leader, it's That's the question you asked, and that was from that's from an excellent book called The Effective Executive. Read it. Actually, one of our former chairs, Andy Rule, turned me on to that, and I was just like, wow, this is an interesting approach. So we also have to remember, and this is one thing I think we have to bear in mind, and I don't want to miss this point, but we have to realize that we libertarians are unusual people in a good way. We're motivated by prospective gain. The vast majority of voters you're going to run into, they're worried about the prospect of loss. And so when Democrats and Republicans sell them, they say, look at this and all these people dying from COVID. Help me, give me your money. I'm going to protect you from COVID. And so the Republicans are like, look at all these boogeymen trying to come overseas, coming over our borders. Let me protect you from Attila the Hun crossing the border. What we need to do, and we can show this, is we need to boldly say, here's the things government did in the name of grandma to grandma. And they ain't pretty. And they're a lot worse than COVID. So please, volunteer, donate, promote the Libertarian Party, because we're actually a lot better and healthier for grandma than the government certainly has been.
That's for damn sure. Hey, only got a couple minutes left. Talk to us about who you've got for coming up running for office. We'd like to get them on our candidate show, but who do you have? If any, do you have anyone running in 2021, or is Connecticut more aligned with the even year model?
We have the municipal races this year. I'm running for first selectman. We've got Matt Radin, who is actually running again. He's already been on the board of Ed in Plainfield, which is an elected office. We actually got a second libertarian running for board of Ed too. That's Mark Campo. I think I've got a pretty good list coming up. I know Matt Long was running for assessor, tax assessment appeals out in Cromwell. Richard Cordero, I think he's running for City Council Area 6 in Meriden. I have to finish this list to do the letter to the Secretary of State Saturday. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I know the ballot drives just ended. So I think we've got more than we've had for local office in the midterm. 2022, I'm hoping to focus my efforts on being a congressional candidate rather than have all these irons in the fire. So we could raise some money, and we could actually do it if I could just be in one place. That would be nice. I think Rod Hanscom is going to be throwing his hat in for governor again. We've got, I think her name is Elaine Chao. She has expressed interest in running for Rosa DeLaurel's seat in the 3rd Congressional District.
Right.
CD5, I'm pretty sure we're going to get that back, because we had it years ago. So we are looking, that is our goal, is to run every candidate for every congressional office. I believe Senate's up, same for governor. We had an ambitious goal before COVID, which was to just get as much ballot access as we could. Like we were going to go out there and crush it, but the governor was like, oh, can't have that. And when it came to the executive orders, guess who those organists targeted? By the way, there's probably going to be a lawsuit in the future, because I did a FOIA request for the Secretary of State to see how they were trying to design these executive orders. Even the Secretary of State said, put all the libertarians on the ballot without petitions. And the governor said no. So I have a bunch of FOIA documents I'm waiting for. And even though our first lawsuit didn't go well because they used COVID as an advantage, we're coming back. And the second one is basically going to eat them alive for not only what they did to cheat in court, as it were, but we're also going to eat them alive for all the federal money they took in order to keep us off the ballot. Mm-hmm. So that CARES Act money, there was a lot of Election Act funding, which was supposed to help us get on the ballot. And my suspicion was, and I think this is why the FOIA Commission finally ordered them to turn it over, I think they know I knew where they buried the bodies, so to speak, and I'm just out there with an excavator. Who knows what we'll find?
There you go. By the way, personally, I can't wait to walk the campaign trail for Matt Long to be a tax assessor. The notion, the concept of a libertarian tax assessor is just way too cool. So,
actually, this is cooler. Matt Long is tax assessment appeals, so he can overrule tax assessor.
That would be like putting me in charge of the speeding traffic court of appeals.
It's like, oh my God, I was holding this hammer and I seem to have accidentally tapped the lens. Yes, there's no camera.
Oh, that's outstanding. No, I
That
can't
camera
wait
to
for.
testify now. It's broken.
I can't wait for this fall. You know, I'm looking. Listen. I'm looking forward to walking the trail with a bunch of you guys, running for state and local office. It's as the kids say, it's going to be a hella good time. Dan, we just got a minute or two left. To give us, we always refer to this segment as our shameless. I'm sorry, you got me laughing. Oh man, a tax assessor appeal as a libertarian. Yep. I just what he's got 100%. Oh, anyway, listen, shameless self-promotion. Tell us, folks, where they can find the Libertarian Party Connecticut, what events are coming up, and where they can find events, and most important, where they can drop a little bit of the scudol, a little bit of the do-re-mi.
Well, obviously, LPCT.org is our shameless plug right there, /donate. And yes, we have raised money before. We know how to do it. I think one of our best year was 2012. That was $80,000. We raised so much money, we got in trouble. And I know during 2018, we had a little incident. The mayor of Meriden threw us out of a park for petitioning, and we sued, and we won. And I held up a picture of a $32,000 check in front of the Hartford Courant's reporter. And then I fanned out my 50 portraits of Benjamin Franklin. And then I just pretty much said, does anybody else want to give a petitioner a problem in Connecticut? Mm-hmm. We have a fillable complaint form in PDF, all ready to serve you.
Who needs LegalZoom?
We have an express lane.
Oh man, that's great. It's great stuff. Well, listen, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get you guys back again. One of the things we're talking about doing on the affiliate show is having the chair with a group of affiliate, in your case, county or local affiliate leaders. Maybe we can set up a little panel conversation after September. And then, of course, please, when you get the list of candidates together, send them on up, because we'd like to get as many of them on the air as possible to speak to the libertarian nation, if you will. Remember, despite the challenges of this year, nearly 2 million Americans voted for Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen. And for all the people that might mention that we don't have that bench, well, the bench is alive and well, and it's operating in all over the state of Connecticut. And we're going to focus on them as possible.
We're not building a bench. We're building bleachers. Stadium.
I like that. We're going to take that. We are actually going to misappropriate that statement. So, Dan, again, congratulations. And as a fellow Region 8 person, I look forward to working alongside of you and entering the field of political battle.
Yes.
And it, it has always been an honor and a privilege, and you've always been a pal to the folks in Rhode Island. So I thank you for that.
No, thank you. It's always good to venture over there when I can. And boy, one of these days I'll actually have a vacation or a day off.
You and me both. Oh, man. Folks, you've been listening to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee. Valerie Sarwak serving as chair. And, of course, the Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. As always, John Gapso joins us on the big board, giving us all the fun graphics, the maps, the website pages, all of that. My name is Pat Ford. It is always, as I say every week now, a singular honor to host and speak with the Libertarian Nation. Folks, this show is available on YouTube, on Facebook. It lives in perpetuity there. So if you want to get a little feedback or a little look at how they did it in Connecticut and how they, well, mission accomplished in terms of getting a message out during the bleak days of the COVID plague, this show will be up there for reference. Folks, we'll see you Friday night. Word has it, and we're going to confirm this, that Greg Mealy of New Jersey, who's running to be the governor of the Garden State, I bet you didn't know that, New Jersey is called the Garden State, will be joining us from the campaign trail, and I look forward to that. He is running an incredibly aggressive campaign, literally going to visit virtually every major city, every burg, every township, 2 and 3 times over. He'll explain to you the perverse method, if you will, of obtaining ballot access in New Jersey. That's going to be a good one. Don't miss it. That'll be Friday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time, here on LPTV. Folks, have a wonderful week. It's time to get to work. We'll see you soon.